So hi, so good afternoon and thanks for coming here. So hi, my name is Ruby, and so let's talk about Cypress, or Cypress for test to hate writing test. Because I think for a lot of us, I think we look at testing as something that we have to do and not something that we really want to do. Or so and I have to admit that I was also not a big fan of writing tests until I started using Cypress not so long ago. And personally, I love how easy it is to set it up and and just begin writing my first test or our first test. So I found writing Cypress actions to be almost doing intuitively, or just like describing how you think the user would use your application. So so I'm just gonna quickly show you how the Cypress test runner looks like as you run your end-to-end test. So so this is a type Cypress test runner that will pop up once you run the Cypress open command. So in this window, that this command opens up, you'll see that there's a lot of examples the Cypress has included out of the box. So when I was first starting to use Cypress or writing tests in Cypress, I find this sample test that was built in to be very useful and helpful in as a quick reference guide, especially if I can't quite remember all the correct syntax or the API that they have. But so again, so in this session, we will take a look at what is Cypress and the high-level overview of how it works. And then we'll explore some of its permanent trade-offs, and then how to set up the environment. And lastly, some video demos of the Cypress being used in various frameworks, such as Razor Pages, Blazor, React, and even Angular. And why are we showing all these frameworks or libraries? Well, basically, because we can. Like I said, you can use it in Ruby, Node, C#, PHP. Okay, none of that matters. So Cypress tests anything that runs in the context of a browser. So it is back-end, front-end, and language and framework agnostic. So you write a test in JavaScript, but beyond that, Cypress works everywhere. Okay, so but why write tests? I guess there's a lot of reasons why you write tests, or why we need to write tests. And it all boils down to this simple explanation for me. So stop being scared. To remove this fear of breaking our app or refactoring anything in our code. So basically, I think we fear our own code. I know I do, especially those code that I haven't seen in a while, I haven't touched in a while. So we fear adding to it, or touching it, or even changing or deleting anything to it. So, okay, we write tests to remove that fear, or if not mitigate that fear. We need to do testing to remove this fear of adding more or changing our code or refactoring anything, right? Like if we should remove a function or rename a method or something like that. So we can stop second guessing ourselves into thinking if it will affect or break anything. So I guess because what I'm trying to say is that without tests, our thinking becomes, if it works already, if it already works, we don't touch it. So, okay, what is Cypress.io? And what exactly does it, why is such a helpful tool? So let's say you're working on a software development team and you're creating a web application. Okay, so imagine this typical scenario, and when you first start developing your application, it's probably fairly simple, right? And then maybe you just have a few buttons and then some text boxes, and then you check that most of the flows of your application work just by clicking around, for a minute or two, and then you make sure that everything works. And in another piece, you add another piece of functionality, and then you click a little bit more. So yeah, and then you interact with some piece of the application to make sure you didn't break anything. Sounds a bit familiar, right? So, well, the problem with this kind of method of testing, of course, is that it doesn't scale well. So as your application gets bigger and bigger, it becomes extremely impractical for developers to test the entire application on their own. So they become limited to testing only the functionality that they added. And they're just crossing their fingers that they didn't break anything or in other part of the app. And so that's where I think the Cypress IO comes in. So yeah, so what is Cypress.io? So Cypress is very easy to use library that allows us to conduct this sort of automated testing. And in my opinion, it's definitely easier to use an other end-to-end testing framework. So it is open source and free. And so at its foundation, that's what the Cypress is. It's a tool for you to automate and scale end-to-end testing and ensure that your application works correctly under all circumstances that the user would use it or will encounter your application. So basically, it addresses the critical pain points of devs and QAs alike, such as your synchronization issues, inconsistency of tests due to elements not visible or not yet available. And yeah, it is built on Node.js, and comes packaged as an npm module. And as it is, you need to use JavaScript to write your test. But again, like what I said, the Cypress built-in commands are very easy to understand. And yeah, it's just like writing or describing how you want or expected your user or the app functionalities to work. Again, so why Cypress for devs? So my answer for that is Cypress is meant to simplify the browser testing, at least in my experience. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, you'll also feel right at home with with Cypress, because it looks like code written in JavaScript. And so even front-end developers and not just QA can write automation tests. And another thing that the test execution is very fast, and really fast. You've seen it earlier with the test runner. And whenever you write something, you can almost immediately see the changes in the test runner executing it. So, and also what I like about Cypress, it has a very good documentation, well organized. So yeah, including in their GitHub, where you can see or fork their full real-world application that you can start to play around with in the beginning and learning how it works. You can see all the APIs, and then studying the Cypress command syntax. And also, the test run failures in the CI/CD can be captured in snapshots and videos. So if ever you need to show your tests or your videos to others to share, you can easily do so. And lastly, it automatically awaits or commands, so you don't need to do like async hell or something like that, or async await when you do your test. So what is end-to-end testing? So I'm just gonna briefly define what is it. It is testing the full flow of your application. So when we say Cypress offers the end-to-end testing, that means it offers different features, such as interacting with your UI or making HTTP requests to help you test your business processes from beginning to end. So with Cypress, it is like, I would say, getting a Swiss Army knife in one tool. So yeah, it is interacting with the application like an end user would. So it is framework agnostic again, and it can be used to test anything that runs in your browser or in a web browser. So, okay, so who uses Cypress? Okay, developers and QA engineers. So actually, Cypress was built in the beginning for developers to do unit tests. But later on, it was enhanced to and now adopted by developers and QAs to run their automation tests. So basically, it allows us to do end-to-end tests, integration tests, and unit tests. But in my opinion, it is in the end-to-end test that where the Cypress really shines, or you can see its full potential. So, okay, we have this before Cypress and now with Cypress. So, like what I said, Cypress is like having a one-man army. So, when it comes to doing an end-to-end testing, and the cool thing about it is that we don't need to install a lot of libraries or external tools to do our end-to-end testing for our framework or session libraries and other additional libraries. Yeah, so you don't need to install or do extra downloads. So with Cypress, basically you can just install it, npm, yeah, and then we'll give you everything already. You no need to add or maintain third-party libraries such as Chai, Jasmine, Mocha, Protector, Nightwatch, WebDriver, IO, and so on. Okay, so here's a good, I hope it's clear, illustration that I got from the internet. Actually, so this is the basic Cypress architecture that I found. So here we have the Node.js process that is running on our operating system. And through the proxy, you can see here, that is, it will make the connection. And that is our browser here, where Cypress is running. And here's the application, which is also running in our browser. And here's a complete browser where application and Cypress is running. And through the proxy, we'll get the request you want to execute. And here's the response via the proxy as well. And yeah, as we have mentioned here before, Cypress can test anything that runs in the browser. So you can access your DOM, your window objects, all the available window objects, your service worker, and the local storage of the particular browser you are using. Any network layer, the dev tools, and yeah, because as you can see, Cypress is sitting inside your browser. Okay, some more useful features of Cypress that I think if you start using it, you would really also love. The time travel. So basically, Cypress takes snapshots of the test when you do your test. So it will give you the flexibility to go back in time and review or as far as execution in command is concerned. So you can see the flow of your test. And then we have also the hard reloads. So the tests are reloaded when any changes made in the test implementation. And then we have the automatic waiting. So no requirement to add waits or sleep in the test. You don't need to do that. So it's automatically built in the Cypress. So basically, Cypress automatically waits for commands and assertions before moving to the next instruction. So usually, the default is around 4 seconds, but you can also reconfigure it and then make it longer or shorter. And then network traffic control. So there's no network log as tests are executed. So within your browser. So you can control stab and test edge cases without any involvement of the server. And also, like I mentioned earlier, we have the screenshots and videos that you can see, especially when you're running in handless mode. It's very useful. Okay, some trade-offs. There has to be some, right? So one limitation of Cypress that is the very thing that that makes it actually such a unique and useful tool, because it runs inside the browser, and this means that the only language that it will ever support for writing the test is in JavaScript. And according to them, is the only language that they will ever support. Yes. So, but does this mean that you can't test your site written in other language than JavaScript? Yes, you can, of course. It just means that the test that you're going to be writing will be in JavaScript. And yeah, and the next limitation is that you can't test multiple tabs or multiple browsers windows at the same time. And the main reason that Cypress doesn't allow you to do that is because they believe that there's really no good reason that you should ever need to test multiple tests or multiple tabs or browsers in the same test. For example, if you just want to test that clicking a link opens to another link in a new tab, you really just need to check the link that has the, for example, target and then the blank set on. And then anything further than that, and then you're not really testing your app or any longer. So you're testing the functionality of your browser, which is something you don't really need to do. And furthermore, if you need to, let's say, test the functionality of something like a chat application, which in theory requires two browsers to chat with each other, right? So there are actually workarounds, or there are methods you can do, such as, let's say, stubbing. Okay, so like what I said, the basics, this is the setup for the Cypress. It's very easy to set it up. So make sure that you already have your run the npm init, or have a node modules or package.json file in the root of your project to ensure Cypress is installed in the correct directory. And for your Ubuntu setup, if you're running your projects in containers, then you'll want Cypress in the container with the Node.js process. Okay, before we show our video of the Cypress test runner, let me show you first the Cypress folders that will be added to our project when you first install and run Cypress. Here are the default project, sorry, the folder's name, but you can name it whatever you want. So we have here first the fixtures. So basically, this is where you put all your test fixtures, such as your stop network requests and so on. And then we have here the integration will be basically writing your test. Well, you put all your folders for test. And then plugins. So this is where also you store your global config, like register your event handlers, change config, and autoload. This one autoloads before your test files. And then support. So like I mentioned, that Cypress already had a big API of commands, but if you want to add third-party packages, you can do so. You can put it here inside the support. And screenshots. So this is where you find all the records of your screenshots and videos. And then lastly, it's the Cypress.json. So this is where you put your modification in Cypress by supplying the specific configuration, like your base URL, your timeouts, and etc. Okay, so writing our first test. So we have here is Cypress starts out actually with a blank slate for your each test. And here you can see the triple slash directives. This is where we get the IntelliSense, which we'll see later on our video. And then, yeah, so personally, like what I said, I find Cypress commands very easy and simple to use, but their functionality is actually very rich. So we can use them to perform all actions we need to perform in our web page. So we have here the test commands are, okay, the test commands here are executed in the order they are written. So that's giving us basically a flake-free test. So, okay, so the first here we have here the describe. The describe here is used to group similar tests together. So we must tell our, and then next is CY visit. So this must tell our visit to visit our website with the CY visit command. And then after that, since we want to visit the same URL, the start of all tests, we include it in the before each function. So it runs before each test. And then here, we have the cy.get command to get all the elements that match the selector. So cy.get should have this length. And then the should assert, then we use the should to assert that there are two match items, which are the default items. And then let's get the input element and use a type command here to input our new list item. And then after typing the content of our item, we need to enter the key as well here in order to submit the input. So now that we've typed our new item, let's check that it actually was added to the list. So in addition, with the two default items, we should have a total of 3 elements in the list. So since assertions yield the element that was asserted on, we can chain both of these assertions together into a single statement. So this is just a basic sample flow of the test, the test flow of our test. Okay, so let's test the Cypress in action. So, okay, the first one will see it's Cypress in Razor pages. So we have here, okay, we have here the C# HTML. So we're installing the Razor pages, and here we're installing running the npm init, and then we're just skipping the default values here. And then npm installing the Cypress. So, okay, the did means a dev dependencies. This only means for development. And down here in the dev dependencies, we have here the Cypress with the version 9.5.2. And then here we are gonna open the npx Cypress open to run the test runner. This will open up the test runner. And it's opening up, which is the test runner is built in Electron. And then here we're seeing the sample tests. So he's running all the tests it can find, which are the sample tests. And okay, so let's go to our folders in Cypress. And then let's just delete the sample test for now. And then we'll just create our own test. And then we'll just name it homepage. We'll just name it homepage spec, for now. So writing basic tests in Cypress is pretty straightforward. So if you're familiar with Mocha test framework, the syntax for organizing your Cypress test will look familiar. Not because it's Mocha, but it's a baked-in version of Mocha that ships by default with Cypress. So again, here we have the describe. So the describe function. So Razor pages. So the Cypress is which allows to group our tests that share a common theme. And then inside the describe, we'll use the before each function. Again, like I said, this one runs before each test in our file. or in our test file. And then we're using the CY visit just to, and then we need to get the URL from our website. We're just gonna copy it. Just getting it. Yeah, I'm just using the localhost 7. From this one, from the Blazor, sorry, the Razor. Just copy it, paste it here. And now we're ready for our it functions. So it should, let's say, it should render ASP.NET core message. And then we have the cy.get. And then we need to get the test attribute of the element that we are testing. Let's say that we're going to name it a data CY welcome message. Then we're going to use contains to chain it. Contains, let's use first Java. So of course it's going to break because we don't have the word Java there. And then the I, it's just to ignore the case sensitivity. Okay, so let's run it. So you can see it's failed. The timeout retrying is 4,000 seconds. Then it's failed because it cannot find the Java. So let's try it with the ASP.NET Core. And then hit save, and then it's passing because it's very fast. And it auto reloads as well. Yeah. So, yeah, and you can see here. And then, okay, so that's the Blazor for you. Okay, let's, sorry, the Razor, and let's try now in Blazor. So here we have the Blazor WebAssembly app. Yeah, we're also using the .NET 6 version here. And then I already installed and then we have the package here. And then the package.json, again, here it is in dev dependencies, the Cypress. And then as in our homepage or in the test files, we have already wrote the test here. So again, here we have the describe. So before each, we have the before each also, and then the CY visit. You have the Blazor. And then we have the it block. So it should display the Blazor app. And then CY contains all this text, the hello world, and then the Blazor. So yeah, and then it should navigate to this counter page. And then we have the this test attribute also. And then it's clicking. And then contain should not exist anymore. So by the way, so here's, if you're wondering where's the test attribute, is here in nav menu.razor. So you can see it here in near the bottom, data CY nav counter button. Okay, so it's running the test, and now you can see it's just passing. And then should it, like it said, the for each, and it's clicking, navigating to here is the and this is the message, And then it's navigating to the counter page. So you can see here, you can see the the flow of your test. And then contains, and then here. So here the web app itself, just the functionality of the counter. So yeah. So again, in Cypress in Angular. So we have here the Angular application and added some test attributes here. So we have here the test ID first name, let's say test ID last name. This is different from what I named in the Razor and the Blazor. But the intentions are here to be able to get the input elements so we can edit and test what's inside the elements. We also here, so here they have test ID house, and then we have also test ID save update button. And then here in the command, so let's check out the commands here. These are the reusable custom interfaces I created. So I'm using the intercept feature of Cypress. So the intercept will cache the HTTP request so we can modify it here. And then return a mock instead of letting the real web service to respond to the requests. Here. And in our global.ts, here we have the interface. So it's a chainable interface. So you have the get command, then the string. And then here again, there's our IntelliSense for the IntelliSense. And here in our spec file, we have our mock data. So we can see the rest of the, and then here, let's see the IntelliSense feature of this Cypress. So when you dot Cypress, and then you can see all of this, so you can hear and filter, first, fixture, get command. Yeah, there's a lot. And yeah, because of, you can just take a look, all of these IntelliSense features that the Cypress is being given to us. And then we have a first test here. We should render the first heroes, and then the describe block. And then we have the describe self-delete a hero, and then another eat block. So let's say you should deduct the length. And then we have another describe here to delete the hero, and then, yeah, so, and here we are using the type. CY.get type first name, and then last name. And then we're putting here the command for the request. So yeah, and then before saving it, the click. And then adding another length just to, and then the CY.total heroes. And then we have another describe here to refetch all the heroes. So, okay, so let's run the test. So first we have the heroes page spec.ts. So you can see it's very fast. It's running all the tests that we have written earlier. So and then the village, let's try the village page spec again. It's also running all the tests that we've created. So here, so you can review all the flow. for example, the soft delete villain, delete a villain, you're adding a new villain, and then here the refetch. So yeah, so that's Angular for you. And then lastly, you can also do it in React. So here's the React app with a shared form and shared input. And here's the test attributes. And we also, the test ID first name, test ID last name, and then the save test ID save character. And then we have the custom commands here to intercept again the HTTP requests, and then declared interface for the custom commands. And for the spec file, so we have here the custom commands inside the for each. So we have here we're putting all the custom commands in the for each, and then we have the it block again. It should render anti-hero page, and another it block, and then it should remove an anti-hero from the store after clicking a remove button, and another test again, and then yeah, it should delete an anti-hero from the database after clicking a delete from DB button. And then here another test, or do it in context. So we have here. And then we're typing here cy.get type first name. This is for the IntelliSense when you TypeScript actually. So you give you when you use this, you have to do this. Yeah. So and then yeah, for the type, this is for the TypeScript. And then cy post command, and then getting the save, and then click. So, and then here the cy find the test ID. And then another refetch. And then we should refetch all anti-heroes after deleting all the anti-heroes. Yeah, so okay, so let's run the test. First, with anti-hero page. See, it's running again, anti-heroes. You should render all the tests, the anti-heroes, buttons inside the card. And here you can check what's happening. For example, you have here, that's, remember when we get the test ID first name, and then the last name, and the house, or that's, and then test ID known as, and then saving the character. And then we have here, should mark, yeah, so, and then you should remove the anti-hero from the, after clicking it. And then we have here the save button. So here you can see the flow of the user interaction also. Here are the things that we have, for example, I've written like Paki first name. So these are also the time travel big debugging that I was telling you about. So you can see everything. You can just review it, the flow of your test. So what to know what's going on. Yeah. So that's it for the frameworks for the demo. Okay, so how do you run Cypress in CI? So in CI, actually, it's just almost the same as running it locally in your machine or in terminal. So, but depending on your CI provider, you may need a config file. So you'll have to refer to your CI provider's documentation to know where to add or install your Cypress. And then you can run Cypress in any CI/CD platform or DevOps platform. So, but let's take a look in detail at how the workflow config or sample workflow config in GitHub Actions and Cypress. So here, first we give our repo name, which in this case is Cypress test. But you can name it whatever you want. So next, we have the on directive, which tells GitHub to trigger this workflow anytime there's a push to our repo. Then under the jobs directive, we name our action Cypress. But again, so yeah, you can name whatever you want. And then next, we then tell Cypress or GitHub to run our workflow on the latest Ubuntu image. And the steps directive basically describes what our action is doing. And then first, we're using the checkout action, which is an action that is maintained by GitHub. So they can be called directly without any additional configuration. And this action checks out our repo and pulls it into our pipeline so that our workflow can access it. And then next, we are utilizing the GitHub's Cypress GitHub action, which is maintained by the Cypress themselves. So this will install our npm dependencies and run our Cypress tests. And then finally, we are using the with directive to tell the Cypress action to run with our build and start the npm scripts. So Cypress also had this, they called it the Cypress dashboard. So, and there's their website. So you can integrate your GitHub actions with the Cypress dashboard. So it's very useful, especially if you're running it in headless mode. It's a very powerful addition to your CI pipelines. They have a free account. And then, yeah, I think in this website. So Cypress dashboard basically provides all kinds of useful features like your screenshots, videos, contextual information, which should help us debug our test or failed tests quickly. And then here you can see that in order to use the dashboard, you need to get this project ID and then the record key. So this unique ID allows us to connect to our project to this organization. So you need to store this project ID in the Cypress.json file, the one I showed you earlier in one of those folders. And the record key is the GitHub secret. So now that we have that, we can add that in our env key, so we can use it in our workflow config. So yeah, this is what I said, that this is a very good repo from Cypress, so you can just test, especially if you start learning how to or want to learn more about Cypress, and just play around first before you start, like say, presenting it to your team or to your manager or something like that, to at least convince them to start also use Cypress. So yeah, so I guess that's it for me. And I hope you got curious enough with Cypress, and yeah, learn something and get interested a little bit more, and to try it in your applications, even in just your personal projects.